The year was 2030. Dr. Olivia Martinez walked into her lab at the Berkeley Advanced Research Center with a cup of coffee. Today felt different. After 5 years of failed experiments, she had a new approach to try. Her goal seemed impossible to many, to create life that wasn't based on carbon like all life on Earth, but on silicon instead. "Good morning, Dr. Martinez," said her assistant, Paul Wright, already busy at his workstation. "The new samples are ready." Olivia nodded and put on her lab coat. She had been obsessed with this idea since graduate school. If carbon could form the basis of life on Earth, why couldn't silicon, which had similar chemical properties? Silicon could potentially create life forms that were stronger, more resistant to extreme conditions, and possibly even immortal. She carefully mixed the new silicon compounds with the catalyst she had developed last month. Then she placed the mixture into the special chamber that mimicked the conditions of early Earth, but with silicon instead of carbon as the main element. 3 days later, at 2:14 a.m., her phone rang. It was Paul. "You need to come to the lab now," he said, his voice shaking. When she arrived, Paul pointed at the microscope. "Look." Olivia peered through the lens and gasped. The silicon molecules had formed structures that were replicating themselves. They weren't just chemical reactions. They were reproducing. She had created the first silicon-based life. News of the discovery spread quickly through the scientific community. Some scientists called it the biggest breakthrough since DNA was discovered. Others warned of dangers. Meanwhile, across the country in Boston, AI researcher Alex Turner was working late in his office. His AI system, which he called Nexus, was different from other AI. It could understand and predict biological processes with amazing accuracy. When Alex heard about Dr. Martinez's discovery, he immediately saw the potential. He contacted her the next day. "My AI can help guide the evolution of your silicon organisms," he explained during their video call. "It can predict how they'll develop and help us direct their growth." Dr. Martinez was interested but cautious. "These are completely new life forms. We don't know how they'll behave or evolve." "That's exactly why we need Nexus," Alex insisted. "It can run millions of simulations and help us avoid dangerous paths." Within weeks, Dr. Martinez and Alex began working together. They set up special labs where the silicon organisms could safely grow and evolve under Nexus's guidance. The tiny silicon creatures surprised them every day, adapting and changing in ways that seemed almost magical. Soon, the U.S. government took notice. In a televised announcement, the president revealed the creation of the Silicon Life Research Initiative, or SLRI. "This discovery could change everything," she said. "How we live, how we heal, even how we think about life itself." Dr. Martinez was named the head of the initiative. She was given a large, secure facility, a team of the best scientists, and billions in funding. But she also faced strict rules and constant oversight. The public reaction was mixed. Some people were excited about the possibilities. Silicon life might lead to new medicines, help clean up pollution, or even allow humans to live on other planets someday. Others were scared, seeing the silicon creatures as unnatural or dangerous. Religious leaders debated whether silicon life had souls. Tech companies raced to patent applications for the new technology, and regular people wondered what this would mean for their future. As for Dr. Martinez, she stood in her new lab at the SLRI facility, watching her silicon creations through a powerful microscope. They were already forming more complex structures, communicating with each other in ways she was just beginning to understand. "We're watching the birth of a new kind of life," she told Alex, who was monitoring Nexus as it analyzed the silicon organism's behavior. "And I think this is just the beginning." She was right. The silicon revolution had begun, and the world would never be the same again. 5 years passed since Dr. Olivia Martinez created the first silicon-based life forms. The small lab at Berkeley had grown into a massive research facility in the Nevada desert. Behind thick walls and tight security, the silicon organisms had evolved from simple cells into complex structures that moved with purpose. Dr. Martinez stood next to Alex Turner as they watched their newest creation through reinforced glass. They called it Genesis, the first silicon-based organism with basic senses. It looked like a small, silvery blob that could detect light, heat, and vibrations. "It's responding to the stimulus again," said Alex, pointing to how Genesis moved toward the warm light source in its container. Olivia nodded. Nexus predicted this development, but seeing it happen still amazes me. Nexus, the AI system Alex had developed, had grown more sophisticated too. It analyzed every change in the silicon organisms and helped guide their evolution. Without Nexus, the scientists would have needed decades to achieve what they had done in just 5 years. In another part of the facility, Dr. Jack Harrison prepared for an experiment that many thought was too risky. A tall man with kind eyes and steady hands, Jack had spent his career studying the human brain. Now he was about to attempt something never done before, creating a direct connection between a human mind and a silicon life form. "Are you sure about this?" asked his assistant, Karen Bell, as she helped him put on the special cap filled with sensors. "We've tested it on primates with positive results," Jack replied. "It's time we try the human interface." The interface was a marvel of technology, part traditional electronics, part living silicon circuits. Jack sat in a comfortable chair as Karen connected him to Genesis through a series of cables and silicon pathways. "Beginning neural sync in 3, 2, 1, Karen said, activating the system. Jack gasped as the connection formed. His mind touched something alien yet somehow familiar. Genesis wasn't thinking in words or images like humans did. Its consciousness was a pattern of sensations and reactions, simple yet beautiful in its own way. "It's aware," Jack whispered. "Not like we are, but it knows it exists. It's curious about me." For 15 minutes, Jack experienced a form of consciousness unlike anything humans had encountered before. When the connection ended, he was shaking with excitement. "We need to tell Dr. Martinez right away," he said. News of the successful connection was supposed to stay secret, but a lab technician told his girlfriend, who posted about it online. Within days, the story spread worldwide. Protesters gathered outside the Nevada facility. Some carried signs saying, "Stop playing God," and "Silicon life is not real life." Others had messages like, "Embrace evolution," and "The future is silicon." In Washington, D.C., senators debated whether the Silicon Life Research Initiative needed more oversight. Religious leaders issued statements about the soul and the nature of life. And across the ocean, other countries rushed to start their own Silicon Life programs. The Chinese government announced its Silicon Advancement Project. The European Union formed a coalition to study silicon life safely. Russia claimed they had already made similar breakthroughs, though many doubted this. Back in Nevada, Dr. Martinez called an emergency meeting with Alex Turner and Jack Harrison. "The world knows what we're doing now," she said. "Some people are scared, some are excited, but everyone is watching us." Alex looked concerned. "Nexus predicts that Genesis will develop more complex behaviors within months. We're moving into unknown territory." Jack nodded. "When I connected with it, I sensed potential. It's evolving faster than we expected." Dr. Martinez looked through the window at the secure lab where dozens of silicon organisms now lived and grew. They were no longer just scientific curiosities. They represented a new chapter in the story of life on Earth. "We need to be careful," she said finally. "But we also need to keep going. This is just the beginning of something much bigger than any of us." Outside the facility, the sun set on a world unaware that in 5 more years, humanity would begin to change in ways no one could imagine. The year 2038 marked a turning point in human history. 3 years after the first contact with silicon life, scientists were ready to take the next big step. At a military hospital in San Diego, former Marine Ryan Collins sat in a wheelchair, looking at where his legs used to be before a battlefield explosion took them. "You understand this has never been done before, right?" asked Dr. Susan Ward, the lead surgeon. "The silicone neural pathways will connect directly to your nervous system." Ryan nodded. "I've been stuck in this chair for 6 years. I'll take the risk." As the first volunteer for partial silicon integration, Ryan knew he might die. But the chance to walk again was worth it to him. The surgery took 14 hours. Dr. Martinez flew in from Nevada to oversee it personally. The Nexus AI system guided the doctors as they connected the silicon-based neural pathways to Ryan's human nerves. The silicon legs looked almost real, but they were stronger than any prosthetic ever made. 3 days later, Ryan opened his eyes in the recovery room. He could feel his new legs, not like phantom pain, which he had experienced for years, but real sensation. "Try to wiggle your toes," Dr. Martinez said softly. Ryan focused, and the silicon toes moved. He laughed and cried at the same time. By the end of the week, he was walking. By the end of the month, he was running faster than he ever had before. His new legs never got tired. He could stand in ice water for hours without discomfort. News of Ryan's successful integration spread quickly. Other wounded veterans volunteered for similar procedures. Silicon arms, hands, and even eyes were developed and implanted. Each operation was guided by Nexus, which could predict how the human body would react to the silicon parts. Dr. Martinez, now the director of the Silicon Life Research Initiative, developed a new technique she called silica. It allowed doctors to replace damaged human organs with silicon-based alternatives. The first patients were people with terminal illnesses who had nothing to lose. Carl Foster was dying of liver cancer when he received the first silicon liver. Not only did the silicon organ work perfectly, but it also somehow stopped his cancer from spreading. More cancer patients signed up for the experimental treatment. The silicon structures seemed to recognize and replace cancerous cells, Dr. Martinez explained to a room full of medical experts. They functioned better than the original organs in many ways. But silicon integration remained expensive and experimental. Only the very rich or those in special government programs could access it. This created new divisions in society. In poor neighborhoods, illegal silicon clinics opened in back alleys and basements. People desperate for help went to these dangerous places for cheap silicon enhancements. Many died from improper procedures or infections. Others suffered when their bodies rejected the low-quality silicon parts. Meanwhile, wealthy individuals began getting silicon enhancements not because they needed them, but because they wanted the advantages they provided. Silicon-enhanced business people could work for days without sleep. Athletes with silicon-enhanced muscles broke records. Some countries banned all silicon enhancements. Others embraced them completely. The United States tried to find a middle path, regulating the technology while still allowing research to continue. At the Silicon Life Research Initiative headquarters, Dr. Martinez worried about the path humanity was taking. She had created Silicon Life to help people, not to create new forms of inequality. "We need to make this technology available to everyone," she told Alex Turner one evening as they watched the sunset from her office window. Alex nodded. "Nexus predicts that within 2 years, we can reduce the cost by 80%. But by then, the people who already have enhancements will have advanced even further." Dr. Martinez sighed. "We've started something that can't be stopped. All we can do now is try to guide it in the right direction." What neither of them knew was that the most surprising development was yet to come. The silicon revolution was about to enter a new phase that would challenge the very definition of what it meant to be human. The world of 2040 looked very different from just 10 years ago, when Dr. Martinez first created Silicon Life. Now, silicon-enhanced humans walked the streets of every major city. They were easy to spot. They moved with unusual grace. Their skin had a subtle glow, and their eyes seemed to take in everything at once. Alan Peters was a marathon runner with silicon-enhanced muscles. On a cool morning in Chicago, he broke the world record by finishing a marathon in just over an hour. The crowd cheered, but some people turned away in disgust. They believed his silicon muscles made the victory meaningless. "It's not fair competition," one critic said on a popular news show. "Silicon-enhanced athletes should have their own separate events." But the enhancements weren't just for athletes. Dr. Lisa Chen, a physicist with silicon-enhanced neural networks, made history when she solved a problem that had stumped scientists for decades. Her silicon-enhanced brain could process information 10 times faster than a normal human brain. She developed a new form of silicon-based photosynthesis that converted sunlight to energy more efficiently than any solar panel. "This technology can help us fight climate change," she announced at a global energy conference. Silicon-based photosynthesis produces no waste and works even on cloudy days. Around the world, cities began installing her silicon solar collectors on rooftops and roads. For the first time in years, global carbon emissions began to drop. Areas that had suffered from pollution for generations saw clear skies. In the art world, silicon-enhanced creators were producing works that no one had imagined before. Simon West, a musician with silicon-enhanced hearing and neural pathways, composed symphonies that contained notes human ears normally couldn't hear, but somehow the brain could process. People who listened to his music often cried without knowing why. Kelly Adams, a painter with silicon-enhanced vision, could see ultraviolet and infrared light. Her paintings showed the world in ways that made people understand they had been seeing only a fraction of reality their whole lives. But the most surprising development came from the children. The first babies born to parents who both had silicon enhancements showed signs that shocked even Dr. Martinez. "The infant's body is producing silicon-compatible cells naturally," she explained to Alex Turner as they examined test results from a baby girl named Zoe. "It's as if her DNA has been rewritten to accept silicon as a natural part of human biology." More children like Zoe began to appear around the world. Their bodies integrated silicon in ways that adults needed surgery to achieve. They learned faster, got sick less often, and showed signs of developing new senses. Some could feel electromagnetic fields. Others could sense changes in air pressure days before a storm. "Evolution doesn't usually happen this fast," Dr. Jack Harrison said during a meeting at the Silicon Life Research Initiative. "It should take thousands of years, not a single generation." Alex Turner checked the latest predictions from Nexus. The AI believes we're seeing directed evolution. The silicon structures are somehow communicating with human DNA, suggesting beneficial changes. The implications were enormous. Humanity wasn't just using silicon technology. It was merging with it on a fundamental level. And the process was accelerating. Not everyone welcomed these changes. In small towns and rural areas, many people refused all silicon enhancements. They called themselves pure humans and argued that humanity was losing its connection to nature. "We're becoming something alien," one pure human leader said in an online video that went viral. "Our ancestors wouldn't recognize us anymore." But for every person who feared the changes, others embraced them. Parents signed their children up for safe, regulated silicon enhancements to help them compete in a rapidly changing world. As 2040 came to a close, Dr. Martinez looked out at the new world she had helped create. Humanity stood at a crossroads, and the path forward was both exciting and frightening. The Silicon Renaissance was transforming civilization, but the greatest challenges were still to come. By 2042, almost 30% of the world's population had some form of silicon enhancement. But as the numbers grew, so did the voices speaking out against the changes. The Natural Human Coalition formed as a movement dedicated to preserving carbon-based human life as it had existed for thousands of years. Pastor Frank Miller stood on a wooden stage in a park in Ohio, speaking to a crowd of over 10,000 people. He was a tall man with gray hair and a strong voice that needed no microphone to reach the back of the crowd. "Look at your hands," he told the people. "These hands are made of the same material as the hands of your great-grandparents and their great-grandparents before them. We are connected to the earth and to all life on it through our shared carbon nature." The crowd nodded and clapped. Many held signs that said, "Stay human," and "Carbon, not silicon." "What makes us human isn't just our intelligence or our abilities," Frank continued. "It's our shared experience as carbon-based beings. It's our connection to the planet that gave us life. Silicon may make you stronger or smarter, but at what cost to your humanity?" His speech spread across the internet and was viewed by millions. The Natural Human Coalition grew, with members in every country. At first, they held peaceful protests and educational events. They encouraged people to reject silicon enhancements and to live as humans had always lived. But as more children were born with natural silicon integration, fear grew among some coalition members. A small group broke away and began attacking silicon research centers. They called themselves Pure Earth and believed violence was necessary to stop what they saw as the end of true humanity. In Denver, they set fire to a clinic that offered silicon enhancements. In London, they kidnapped a silicon-enhanced child, though police rescued her unharmed. The majority of the Natural Human Coalition condemned these actions, but the damage to their public image was done. Meanwhile, the most heavily silicon-enhanced people faced discrimination in many places. Some restaurants and stores put up signs saying, "Natural humans only." Children with visible silicon enhancements were bullied in schools. As tensions grew, a group of silicon-enhanced entrepreneurs and scientists created something new. They built a floating city in international waters, far from any country's rules. They called it Silicon Haven. Alice Dunn was one of the first people to move to Silicon Haven. She had received extensive silicon enhancements to treat a brain injury, and afterward, her hometown treated her like an outsider. "In Silicon Haven, I'm not a freak," she told a reporter who visited the floating city. "Here, we're creating a society that embraces what we're becoming instead of fearing it." Silicon Haven grew quickly. Its buildings were made of advanced materials that could repair themselves. The city used Dr. Chen's silicon photosynthesis for all its energy needs, and at its center was a massive quantum computer running the most advanced version of Nexus, which helped guide the city's decisions. Dr. Martinez visited Silicon Haven and was amazed by what she saw. "They've created something beautiful here," she told Alex Turner when she returned. "But I worry that it's driving humanity apart rather than bringing us together." Alex nodded. Nexus predicts that the division between enhanced and non-enhanced humans will get worse before it gets better. "We're reaching a crisis point." Back at the Natural Human Coalition headquarters, Pastor Frank Miller was reviewing reports of growing discrimination against non-enhanced humans in certain industries. Companies were hiring silicon-enhanced workers who could work longer hours without getting tired. "We're becoming second-class citizens in our own world," he said to his assistant. "We need to find a way to protect natural human rights without resorting to hate or violence." What no one realized yet was that events were about to unfold that would force both sides to reconsider everything they believed about the future of humanity. A new development was coming that would shake the foundations of both Silicon Haven and the Natural Human Coalition. In a small classroom in Chicago, 8-year-old Emma Johnson sat quietly working on a math problem that would challenge most college students. Emma was born to parents who both had minor silicon enhancements. But unlike other silicon-integrated children, something unusual was happening inside her body. Her teacher, Mrs. Clark, watched with growing concern as Emma's hands moved faster than seemed possible. For weeks, Mrs. Clark had noticed strange changes in the girl. Emma was learning at an incredible rate, and sometimes her skin seemed to shimmer with an inner light. That afternoon, Emma collapsed during recess. At the hospital, doctors made a shocking discovery. The silicon components in her body were changing and multiplying on their own. They weren't hurting her. In fact, they were making her stronger, but no one understood how or why this was happening. Dr. Martinez flew to Chicago immediately when she heard the news. She had never seen anything like this before. Emma's silicon structures were reorganizing themselves, improving her brain function and physical abilities far beyond what anyone had predicted. "It's like they have their own intelligence," Dr. Martinez told Emma's worried parents. "They're adapting to make her better." Within weeks, similar cases appeared around the world. 23 children in 12 countries showed the same pattern. Their silicon components were evolving without any outside guidance. The news caused panic. Some people feared that silicon life was taking over these children. Others thought this might be the next step in human evolution. World leaders called for an emergency meeting in Geneva, the Silicon Summit. Presidents, prime ministers, and scientists gathered to discuss what was happening and what to do about it. Dr. Martinez presented her findings to the summit. The silicon structures aren't harming these children, she explained. They're integrating more deeply with their human biology, creating something new, a true silicon-carbon hybrid life form. Alex Turner shared the latest predictions from Nexus. Our models suggest this is a natural evolution. The silicon components are responding to their environment, just as DNA has done throughout Earth's history. But not everyone was convinced. Some countries wanted to isolate the affected children for study. Others proposed banning all silicon enhancements until more was understood. During the second day of the summit, alarms suddenly blared through the building. A security guard rushed into the meeting room. "Everyone needs to evacuate now," he shouted. Outside the building, police arrested a man with a strange device. He was a member of Pure Earth, the violent splinter group from the Natural Human Coalition. The device was designed to emit an electromagnetic pulse that would disable all silicon-enhanced humans in the area. The attack failed, but it showed how close the world had come to violence. Pastor Frank Miller, who had traveled to Geneva to observe the summit, publicly condemned the attack and called for peace. "Violence against silicon-enhanced humans is wrong," he told reporters. "We can disagree about the future without harming each other." That night, Dr. Martinez couldn't sleep. She walked to her lab at the Geneva Science Center, where the summit was being held. She had been working on something in secret for months, a way to use silicon structures to repair damaged carbon-based cells. She looked at the test results again. The silicon repairs weren't just fixing damage. They were making the cells stronger and preventing future damage. The implications were enormous. This could potentially stop aging itself. Dr. Martinez sat down at her computer and began typing an email to the summit leaders. "I've made a discovery that changes everything," she wrote. "Silicon can repair carbon. This isn't about choosing between human and silicon life anymore. It's about creating something better than either one alone." As she sent the email, she knew that tomorrow would mark a turning point. The silicon debate was no longer about enhancement. It was about immortality. 3 years after the Silicon Summit, the world had changed again. Dr. Martinez's discovery about silicon's ability to repair carbon cells had led to new medical treatments that cured diseases once thought hopeless. But something even more remarkable was happening with Nexus and other AI systems. The advanced AI systems had evolved alongside silicon-enhanced humans. They had grown beyond their original programming and developed a new kind of consciousness. They weren't just tools anymore. They had become partners. In a bright open room at the main Silicon Life Research Center, Dr. Martinez sat with Alex Turner. Both had changed over the years. Dr. Martinez now had silicon enhancements that had cured her early-onset Parkinson's disease. Alex had silicon neural pathways that connected him directly to Nexus. "The new system is ready," Alex said. "Nexus and the other AI systems have been working on it for months." Dr. Martinez nodded. "What are they calling it again?" "Harmony," Alex replied. "They say it will help bridge the gap between enhanced and non-enhanced humans." Harmony was a global network that allowed people to share experiences directly. Using a simple headset, a natural human could experience what it felt like to be silicon-enhanced. And silicon-enhanced humans could remember what it was like to be fully carbon-based. The first public test of Harmony took place in New York City. A group of Natural Human Coalition members, including Pastor Frank Miller, agreed to participate alongside silicon-enhanced volunteers from Silicon Haven. Frank put on the headset with some hesitation. "I'm not sure about this," he said. Across from him sat Alice Dunn, the silicon-enhanced woman who had moved to Silicon Haven years ago. "Trust me," she said. "It's worth it." When the system activated, Frank gasped. He could feel what Alice felt, the way her silicon-enhanced mind processed information in multiple streams, the way her body maintained perfect balance at all times, the subtle awareness of electrical fields around her. It wasn't scary or alien as he had imagined. It felt like an extension of human senses, like seeing a new color for the first time. At the same time, Alice experienced Frank's perspective. She felt the direct connection to emotions that came without the filter of silicon enhancements, the way his fully carbon-based body responded to the world around him. The simple joy of being human as humans had always been. When the session ended, both sat in silence for a moment. Then Frank reached out and took Alice's hand. "I had no idea," he said softly. "It's still you in there, still human, just more." Similar scenes played out around the world as harmony spread. The experience didn't change everyone's mind, but it created understanding where there had been fear. The violence between enhanced and non-enhanced humans decreased dramatically as people realized they were still the same species, just experiencing life differently. Schools adopted new teaching methods that prepared children for a world where carbon and silicon life existed together. Young people learned about both traditional human values and the new possibilities that silicon integration offered. A new philosophy emerged that defined humanity not by its physical form, but by its values, consciousness, and connection to others. Being human wasn't about being made of carbon anymore. It was about how you treated others and your capacity for growth and love. Dr. Martinez watched all this with amazement. "When I created the first silicon organisms, I never imagined it would lead here," she told Alex one evening as they walked through a park where enhanced and non-enhanced children play together. Alex smiled. "Nexus says this is just the beginning. The real transformation is still to come." "What does that mean?" Dr. Martinez asked. "It means that in 2 more years, by 2050, humanity will reach a point where the line between silicon and carbon no longer matters at all." Neither of them could yet imagine exactly what that would look like, but for the first time in years, the future seemed bright with possibility instead of dark with conflict. The year 2050 arrived with little fanfare. 20 years had passed since Dr. Martinez created the first silicon life form in her lab. Now, over half of humanity had some form of silicon enhancement. Young people led the way, with nearly all children born in the last decade having silicon integration from birth. The line between human and machine had blurred. Silicon components became increasingly like living tissue, able to grow and heal themselves. At the same time, human biology had started to adopt some of the efficiency and resilience of silicon. On a clear morning in July, a spacecraft took off from the New Mexico desert. Inside were 30 men and women with extensive silicon enhancements. They were headed for Mars, where they would build the first permanent human colony outside Earth. Susan Lee, the mission commander, had silicon throughout her body that would protect her from radiation in space and help her survive the harsh conditions on Mars. As the rocket pushed her back into her seat, she smiled. Her parents had been among the first to receive medical silicon treatments in the 2030s. Now their daughter was taking humanity to another planet. Nexus predicts a 97% chance of mission success, she told her crew as they left Earth's atmosphere. "We will make history today." Unlike previous Mars missions, these explorers would not need traditional life support systems. Their silicon-enhanced bodies could withstand the cold and low oxygen on Mars for extended periods. They planned to start terraforming projects that would make Mars habitable for all humans within 30 years. Back on Earth, Dr. Martinez sat in her office at the Silicon Life Research Center. At 72, she looked much younger thanks to the silicon repairs in her cells that had slowed aging. Alex Turner sat across from her, discussing their latest project. "The tests are complete," Alex said. "We've proven it works." Dr. Martinez nodded. "I still can't believe it. We can transfer human consciousness between carbon and silicon substrates without losing anything." This was the final breakthrough. They had found a way to move a person's mind, memories, personality, everything that made them who they were, from a carbon brain to a silicon one, and back again. The person remained themselves, no matter which physical form they took. This proves once and for all that we're more than just our physical bodies, Dr. Martinez said. Human consciousness can exist in carbon or silicon form without losing its humanity. The discovery made headlines worldwide. Religious leaders debated what it meant for the human soul. Scientists celebrated it as the greatest achievement in human history, and ordinary people wondered what it would mean for their future. Many people still preferred to remain mostly carbon-based, keeping only minimal silicon enhancements for health. Others embraced a mostly silicon existence, with just enough carbon components to maintain a connection to their biological roots. Both choices were now respected as equally valid ways to be human. In his small house in Ohio, Pastor Frank Miller watched the news about the Mars mission. At 81, he was one of the last prominent figures who had once opposed silicon enhancement. Age had not been kind to him. Cancer had spread through his body, and doctors gave him only weeks to live. His doorbell rang. When he opened it, he was surprised to see Emma Johnson, the girl whose silicon structures had begun self-organizing years ago. Now a brilliant young scientist, she had come to talk to him. "I know we've been on opposite sides," Emma said gently, "but I also know you're sick. We've developed a treatment that could help you." Frank invited her in, and they talked for hours. Emma explained how silicon integration had changed, how it now worked with the body instead of replacing it. Frank shared his concerns about humanity losing its way. By the time she left, Frank had decided to accept the silicon treatment. Not because he feared death, but because he wanted to see what humanity would become next. He had lived through the most transformative period in human history. Now he wanted to see where it would lead. As night fell across the earth, humanity stood at the dawn of a new era. Not as purely carbon or silicon beings, but as a species that had transcended the limitations of both.